The Pentagon just shattered decades of tradition, kicking out major news organizations and welcoming a new press corps. And it changes everything about how you get military news.
It really does. It's a monumental shift.
Uh,
Our sources indicate that the Department of Defense is uh, basically asserting its right to operational security, reestablishing control over its internal information flow.
Control they felt they'd lost.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They seem to believe this control was compromised by reporters who, well, they argue prioritized maybe sensationalism over substance, or at least over security protocols.
Okay, let's unpack this for you. We are diving deep into the source material, covering this huge overhaul at the Department of Defense, led by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth.
Mm-hmm.
Dozens of legacy media reporters, the big names, they walked out rather than sign a strict set of new access rules. And now, a whole new roster of conservative and independent outlets has walked right in.
Yeah, and our mission today is really to give you the full context. We'll look at what the DoD is calling common sense rules and try to analyze why the establishment media rejected them, while this new group of journalists embraced them as necessary for national security.
And it's not just some internal policy spat, is it?
No, not at all. It's a strategic decision. It fundamentally redefines who gets to cover the U.S. military from the inside.
What's really striking is just how fast this happened. I mean, less than a week after the big news organizations said no to the new policy.
Boom. The DoD announced its new press corps.
Just like that. And this group, it totals over 60 journalists who agreed to abide by the required security procedures.
Yeah, and Defense Secretary Hegseth's spokesman, Sean Parnell, he didn't mince words. Our sources quote him denouncing the departing media as self-righteous activists. Pretty strong language.
Very strong. So who makes up this replacement list?
Well, it includes outlets like the Gateway Pundit, Lindell TV.
The My Pillow Guys Network?
That's the one. Lindell TV, The National Pulse, Human Events. It signals a massive shift in who the military command, or at least this command, trusts.
And Parnell's reasoning.
His rationale, as the sources detail it, is that Americans have largely abandoned digesting their news through the lens of activists who masquerade as journalists. He said the DoD is looking for a fresh relationship.
A relationship focused on what? Their definition of facts and security.
That seems to be the idea, yes.
Yeah.
Facts and security above all else.
Okay, let's break down this great exchange. Who actually left?
You had the major players walk out: the New York Times, the Associated Press, CNN, the Washington Post.
The usual suspects, maybe?
Well, yes, but what's really interesting and gives important context is that even conservative heavyweights like Fox News and Newsmax were among those who walked out.
Okay, so it wasn't strictly a left-right political thing then.
It seems broader than that. They all rejected this comprehensive 21-page policy document.
And the sources supporting Hegseth, how do they frame that walkout?
They frame it almost as an admission that these organizations basically preferred having uncontrolled access over agreeing to follow security guidelines.
All right, so that's who's out. Now, who is in? A new roster.
The core group that signed on includes, as we mentioned, the Gateway Pundit, the National Pulse, Human Events, also podcaster Tim Pool, Just the News, Frontlines by Turning Point USA,
Lindell TV again?
Lindell TV, The Federalist, The Epoch Times, and One American News, or OAN. So it's a different spectrum of outlets, many with a clear conservative viewpoint, who looked at these rules and said, yeah, this seems reasonable.
And Parnell gave numbers.
He did. He announced more than 60 journalists signed the new policy. But here's a really critical detail. That group included 26 reporters who were already part of the previous press corps.
Ah, so some individuals stayed even if their organizations left.
Exactly. It shows that while the big institutions walked, some working reporters decided maintaining that Pentagon access was the priority.
Okay, and the justification spin around this change.
Well, one outlet, the Washington Reporter, they apparently called the legacy media reaction Trump derangement syndrome, and said they were comfortable signing these policies in part because of who is opposed to them, sort of an enemy of my enemy situation.
And what about someone from the new group?
Jordan Conradson from the Gateway Pundit. He's quoted saying he was excited to help restore honest journalism after agreeing to follow basic rules, something the legacy media refuses to do.
So the DoD sees this as swapping adversaries for partners.
Essentially, yes. Trading organizations they viewed as, let's say, adversarial or leaky for ones they perhaps see as more aligned on prioritizing security and accountability, as the DoD defines it.
Okay, so to really understand why those big news organizations walked out, we need to look past the politics and actually get into the policy document itself. What's the legal basis here, and what restrictions did they find so unacceptable?
Right. First things first, we have to understand the DoD's core legal position. Access to the Pentagon. It's considered a privilege, not a legal right.
That's a key distinction.
It's crucial, and it's backed by constitutional jurisprudence. The government maintains discretion to regulate that access, especially when national security is potentially involved.
Okay, that definitely frames their position legally. So what about these restrictions? The ones the established media called, well, restrictive, and the DoD called common sense procedures.
The policy is explicitly designed, they say, to ensure operational security. It states reporters are restricted to covering news that's been approved for public release by Hegseth's team.
Approved news, that sounds significant.
It is. And perhaps more controversially for the journalists who left, the policy explicitly bars them from soliciting classified national security information that's CNS, or Controlled Unclassified Information, CUI.
Hold on, let's just quickly define those terms. CNSI, okay, classified national security information, secret stuff. But CUI, what exactly is that?
CUI, Controlled Unclassified Information. That's often the gray area. It's information that isn't technically classified, but it's still sensitive.
Like what?
Think maybe details about troop movements that aren't secret, but you don't want widely known yet. Internal financial audits, potential weaknesses in critical infrastructure, stuff like that. Information that could potentially harm a mission or give an adversary an edge if it got out prematurely.
Okay.
So by restricting the solicitation of both CNSI and CUI, the Pentagon is trying to shut down essentially investigative efforts aimed at uncovering unauthorized leaks of sensitive info, classified or not.
And they're tying this to military law for employees, too.
Yes. The policy reinforces that all DoD information must be approved for public release by an authorizing official before it goes out. And if an employee discloses unauthorized material, the policy explicitly warns they face adverse action, citing the Uniform Code of Military Justice, Article 92.
Article 92, what does that cover?
Fundamentally, it covers failure to obey a lawful order or regulation. So by making these new media procedures an official regulation,
They make leaking to the press a clear violation for military personnel or civilian employees, raising the stakes.
precisely, it increases the consequences for potential leakers inside the building. And the new media corps, they seem to view adhering to these rules as just part of professional responsibility, part of protecting national integrity.
Wait a minute, though. If the policy restricts reporters to covering only news approved for public release, isn't that basically government pre-approval? Censorship, essentially? How can these new outlets claim they're restoring honest journalism if they agree upfront to limit themselves strictly to the officially sanctioned message? Doesn't real investigative journalism sometimes require digging for facts the government might not want out?
That is exactly the argument made by the legacy media who walked out. That's their core objection.
But the DoD's defense.
Their defense, according to sources supporting Hegseth, is basically that the Pentagon shouldn't be expected to grant premium physical access inside the building to reporters who are actively trying to solicit information that regulations are designed to protect.
So they're saying, if you want access, play by our security rules.
Essentially, they believe honest journalism about the military means adhering to established security protocols. They see it differently.
And it's not just about information. They've added physical constraints too, right?
Exactly. The new ground rules are stricter. Reporters have to be escorted to and from any spaces outside the designated press areas.
Why?
The stated goal is discipline, preventing unauthorized wandering, maybe accidental exposure of sensitive areas or information. They've even changed the badges. The new ones have press, clearly printed in big red letters. Helps military personnel identify them quickly.
So the traditional media saw these rules, physical and informational, as roadblocks to free investigation.
Impeding their power to investigate freely, yes. While the new guard, the outlets who signed on, seem to view them as just necessary boundaries for responsible reporting on inherently sensitive national security matters.
Okay. To really get the why behind this strict new policy, maybe we need to look back a bit. This tension between a free press and national security, it's not new, is it?
Oh, absolutely not. This conflict is a recurring theme. It's a strategic military problem that goes way back. When the military feels it's losing control of its information, the consequences, both operational and political, can be really severe from their perspective.
Are there historical examples, precedents for this kind of restriction?
Definitely. Our sources point to several cases where the military took pretty decisive steps to control the narrative, kind of setting the stage for what we're seeing now.
Like when?
Well, look back at Grenada in 1983. The military imposed a complete ban on press access for the first 2 days of the operation.
Yeah.
Total blackout.
And the result?
The Reagan administration had a, quote, total monopoly of invasion-related information, no outside reporting. And some influential officers later suggested that this strict control was a key factor in what they saw as America's only unequivocal military victory since World War II.
Wow. So the lesson learned internally was information control equals success.
That seems to be a major takeaway for parts of the military establishment, yes. Control the narrative, ensure operational success, ensure favorable political outcomes.
Did they try it again?
They refined it. In Panama, 1989, press access was denied during the most active combat phases. And the significant outcome there, not a single independent combat photograph or eyewitness account was published during that critical period. Again, the military's preferred narrative went largely unchallenged in real time.
And this led up to the Gulf War.
Yes, the Persian Gulf War in 1990, that's where the DoD really systematized it. They used a pool system, but with mandatory security reviews of all news material. Everything had to be cleared for publication or broadcast.
Mandatory review.
Mandatory.
Yeah.
And the source material notes the military was explicitly satisfied with the political results of essentially eliminating independent, potentially adversarial reporting. So there's a clear pattern. Restricting access has been used successfully by the DoD in the past to achieve operational security and political goals.
And how does this contrast with, say, Vietnam?
Vietnam is the big contrast. There, the military tried a voluntary self-censorship system. They issued ground rules, and generally the press did observe them. Apparently, only 6 reporters out of maybe 2,000 lost accreditation over 4 years.
This sounds like it worked.
From a pure rule-following perspective, maybe. But the military was ultimately very dissatisfied with the political results. They believed the independent, often critical media coverage significantly decreased public support for the war effort.
Which eventually led to Congress cutting off funding.
Exactly. That's the nightmare scenario for military planners.
Yeah.
So for military leadership, the goal isn't just immediate troop safety on the ground. It's also about preventing politically damaging coverage that could undermine long-term military objectives or national will.
So Hegseth's move is basically trying to avoid another Vietnam media situation.
It certainly looks like an attempt to restore those successful restriction models, like Grenada and the Gulf War, favoring strict mandatory security protocols and disciplined reporting over the voluntary system that military strategists feel really failed them politically during Vietnam.
So wrapping this up, what does this all mean for you, the person trying to follow this news?
Well, the Pentagon has effectively made a trade. They've traded widespread access, which often came with, let's face it, antagonism and critical leaks, for much more limited access governed by extremely strict rules.
And they're favoring outlets who explicitly signed on the dotted line, agreeing to put the government's definition of security first.
Right. This move really formalizes a belief within this Pentagon leadership that the departing media organizations are either incapable or maybe unwilling to self-regulate national security information responsibly. It treats media access purely as a privilege.
A privilege granted only to those willing to play by the government's terms.
Exactly. The administration clearly views this as a necessary step to, in their view, guarantee that the narrative around the armed forces is accurate, secure, and ultimately supportive of the mission.
So the core takeaway seems to be the Pentagon creating this very structured environment, almost engineered to encourage specific, maybe more favorable reporting. But the big question now is, does this new core, which some critics are calling advocates or influencers rather than traditional journalists, can they truly restore honest journalism just by being willing partners? Or does this level of strict control just end up creating an echo chamber inside the Pentagon walls?
And here's a final thought to consider. The press corps that walked out,
Yeah.
they argue they'll just work harder now, reporting aggressively from outside the building.
Yeah.
So is it possible that the Pentagon's decision to clamp down on access will actually drive the most skilled investigative journalists to dig even harder, to expose unauthorized information the old-fashioned way through dedicated digging, cultivating sources, working outside those walls? They might have just inadvertently made controlling the real flow of information much, much harder than they intended.